Hello everyone, it's Theme Park Avenue, I'm Eric. If you are new to this channel, you may have already guessed from the channel name that I am a big fan of theme parks. But most specifically, I love roller coasters. They are the main draw of amusement and theme parks for me, and I have been on around 370 in the last decade of being a roller coaster enthusiast. And it's been a little while since I actually did a ranking of my absolute favorites. I believe it has been 2 years at this point. So I thought it was time for a refresher, because I've been on quite a few new roller coasters in the last 2 years, some of which are among the best in the world. So in this video, I am ranking my top 25 roller coasters that I've ever been on. Quick disclaimer, though I have been to some theme parks in other countries outside of the US, this entire list is just US coasters. So most omissions from other countries are going to be just because I have not been on them yet. Additionally, if you leave a comment saying I forgot a roller coaster, I did not forget. It was considered. It simply is not a favorite of mine, or I just haven't been on it. You know the drill. It's all just opinions, just having fun talking about roller coasters. But maybe this will introduce some new ones to you to put on your list. With all that out of the way, let's begin. Number 25 is Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England. The first of many RMC hybrid roller coasters on this list, this one has incredible pacing for the first 2/3 or so. My last ride was in 2022, and I've heard the ride has gotten even faster, especially in the final third that did drag for me. So maybe it would move up if I went back. However, what really does make this ride, like many other RMCs, is how relentless it feels. Even though the track is glass smooth, you still get thrown around like crazy, and there is a certain level of intensity to these rides. The pacing is mostly immaculate on these. This one is not my favorite, but it is still a fantastic roller coaster, and I would not be surprised if it is many people's number one. Number 24, New Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas, the first RMC hybrid coaster ever built. This one, I think, is underrated. It is massive in scale, and while it lacks the inversions of others, and is in general not as well paced, it feels much more relentless. There is a slight bumpiness to it, but it's not painful. It makes the ride feel rowdier than a lot of other modern roller coasters from the company. As a result, I have more fun with it than some others. I do think technically the layout is one of the weaker ones, but I am a sucker for overbanked turns, and this one has some great ones. And the finale is still one of my favorites of any RMC. Certainly a fantastic ride. Number 23, Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. This roller coaster is also by RMC, but it is much newer than the first two I named, and it shows. It is a very fun beginning with the barrel roll drop and inversion right at the beginning of the ride, and after that, you are treated to some of the strongest airtime of any roller coaster. You get thrown out of your seat for sustained periods at the beginning, and then it's just whoop, 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 getting thrown out again and again for the rest of the ride. It can be too much for some. I think this one is not as accessible to the general audience as Wicked Cyclone or New Texas Giant, but still, for someone like me who does enjoy the really rowdy experience, I think it is a phenomenal roller coaster. Number 22, Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood. Kennywood is a park in Pennsylvania that I went to very recently, and Phantom's Revenge is an excellent roller coaster. Without a doubt my favorite there. This one is a Morgan hypercoaster that was made by transforming a massive looping roller coaster. There are no loops anymore, but what it might lack in that regard, it makes up for with pure speed and flawless airtime. There is a massive drop, and the fun thing about this ride is that the first drop is smaller than the second drop, so the second one is really what's going to scare you. And after that, even though the layout is sort of short, you have some unbelievable moments of getting thrown out of your seat. This ride can definitely be too much for some, but it feels like a classic, and it is without a doubt one of the best hypercoasters, that being a coaster with 200 feet in height or higher, I've ever been on. Number 21, Intimidator 305. Longtime fans of my channel will know that I've been a hater of this ride for a long time. I always thought it was good, but to not think it's best in the world pretty much makes you a hater. And unfortunately for those who did enjoy my commitment to that, I re-rode this in October last year, and yeah, it's a great ride. it is one of the most intense roller coasters out there. In the front row for me, the first turn is the only moment on a roller coaster to ever make me gray out. And I have to commend that. It is one of the best moments on any roller coaster that I think you can experience on Earth. And there's really nothing else quite like it. Frankly, I do think beyond that, there isn't a lot that I would consider super noteworthy. The rest is all great, and certainly deserving of a top 50 spot, but it really is just that one incredible start that makes this worthy of the top 25. And it is, while still a little overrated by those who think it's the best roller coaster in the world because of one element, I do still think it is among the best. Not number one, but still a phenomenal ride. Number 20, Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom. Storm Chaser is another RMC hybrid. This one also has the barrel roll drop, and while I don't think it's as well paced as Twisted Timbers, I think it feels a lot more relentless. The airtime really is insane, and at a certain point it can be hard to distinguish which RMC is a better airtime than others because most of them have phenomenal moments of weightlessness or just getting thrown out of your seat. But I distinctly remember Storm Chaser being one of the most insane and unhinged of any of the RMCs. It's one of the longer ones as well, from my experience. It doesn't feel like it's over too quickly, so it is an excellent roller coaster, and my personal favorite at Kentucky Kingdom. Number 19, The Joker at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. This is an underrated RMC. It has the airtime of the others, but it really gets a high spot for the inversions. It has some of the best moments of going upside down of any roller coaster, and most RMC roller coasters are somewhat lackluster in the inversion department in my opinion. But this one has an incredible stall, a phenomenal zero-G roll, and it feels longer than all of the ones I've named so far. So it really is just the complete package. It's not as mind-blowing as some of the RMCs with more impressive stats, and a few others I will name, but it is among my favorites from the manufacturer, and is overall an underrated masterpiece. Number 18, Prowler at Worlds of Fun. This is a GCI wooden coaster, and it's hard to be a truly great wooden coaster because the rides are just not quite as polished and refined as most steel ones, but this ride is near perfect. Everything from the RMC level pacing and airtime, to the wild intensity and rowdiness in a good way, to the unbelievable setting, allowing for some of the best night rides of any roller coaster, Prowler is simply fantastic, and more than deserving of a top 25 spot, even as a wooden coaster. Number 17, Thunderhead at Dollywood. This is another GCI wooden coaster that I think is even stronger because Prowler loses a little bit of speed by the end, while Thunderhead stays strong the whole way through. This is an incredible ride, and the fact it was my second favorite at Dollywood when I went goes to show just how good that park is. But even disregarding just Dollywood being fantastic, Thunderhead is one of the best wooden coasters out there, near flawless in every regard, running insanely well in 2023, and I can't wait to possibly go back and experience this one once again. Number 16, Railblazer at California's Great America. This is an RMC single rail roller coaster, very different from the hybrids, but it has some similar strengths. The most interesting thing about this one is the pacing. I mentioned that RMC hybrids, they have great pacing. There's no moments where they really drag typically, and that is a major strength here. Because just watching footage of this ride, I cannot believe it only goes 52 miles per hour. It looks way, way faster. It tears through the layout, and while this one is short, it still feels very complete. Every element is great. It has good moments of both inversions and airtime. The first drop is a truly terrifying moment the way you crest over it, especially because of how the seats are really small. And overall, while it isn't a super long ride and I do enjoy long duration on a roller coaster, this one is still excellent. A truly insane ride, and the fact they packed this much into a 30-second experience is insane. Number 15, Maverick at Cedar Point. Maverick is an intimate multi-launch roller coaster, and this is arguably one of the most important roller coasters of the 21st century. It really did just set the stage for every launch coaster that came after it, and it is easy to see why others would want to do a similar thing. everything about this ride. From the launch going up the hill to the 95-degree drop, to the tight turns through the canyon with insane intensity, to, of course, the immaculate tunnel launch. The way you stop, and then go from 0 to 72, and then tear through the final part of the layout. This is an incredible experience. And if you can get a night ride, that is just something else. Entering that tunnel at night is one of my favorite experiences I've had on any roller coaster, and overall, while Maverick is technically a little outdated and can sometimes be a little painful, it is still one of the best roller coasters ever created. Number 14, Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure. Shivering Timbers is a CCI wooden coaster. This one is interesting because it's not at a park with any other headliner attraction, but this ride is one of the most wild experiences I've had on any roller coaster. It is the first roller coaster I've come off crying. This thing is massive, first of all. The first drop is huge, and then you have some massive camelbacks. And once you make the turnaround, you are flying over airtime hill after airtime hill, and it's crazy. The wind in your face on this one, on top of getting thrown out of your seat, the rattle, everything just perfectly blends together in one of the most insane roller coaster experiences. It feels like some classic ride that should have closed a long time ago due to safety concerns, in the best possible way. It feels almost dangerous in how intense and fun it is. And I love that. You know it's safe, you know you're not going to fly out, but it still feels like a possibility when you're on Shivering Timbers. Not to mention, it's one of the funniest names for any roller coaster. Number 13, The Voyage at Holiday World. This and Shivering Timbers were very neck and neck for me. But ultimately, The Voyage is a more complete ride experience, and truly a masterclass of roller coaster engineering. It has the same start to an extent as Shivering Timbers. A big first drop, massive camelbacks, then you enter the forest. And you are going at breakneck speed, flying through turns that give laterals. Lateral forces slam you into the side of the car. The cars are comfy so it doesn't hurt, but those forces are wild. And this thing is even longer than Shivering Timbers, making it one of the most wild experiences of any roller coaster. I didn't cry on this one, but it was close. And The Voyage is simply one of the best wooden coasters ever built. Number 12, Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. This is a much more modern wooden coaster. It's not one with massive stats. I believe it's barely over 100 feet tall. However, it has the biggest strengths of RMC hybrid roller coasters, while still feeling like a great wooden coaster. The pacing is just as good, if not better, than every RMC I've named. The way you fly through these airtime hills and other intense moments is insane. And the setting in the woods adds quite a bit. A night ride on Mystic Timbers is comparable to Maverick in my opinion. The way you fly over the river rapids while getting thrown out of your seat, it's so much fun. I can't fault anything about Mystic Timbers. For me, it is one of the most overhated roller coasters ever. And even the shed has been greatly improved in recent years, making it a bit more fun as a good way to end the ride. And overall, it is definitely one of my favorite wooden coasters I've been on. Number 11, Kingda Ka at Six Flags Great Adventure. The tallest roller coaster in the world, and the second fastest, at least until Falcon's Flight gets built, if it gets built. This is a true adrenaline rush of a ride. You pull up to this sort of grassy area, out of the station, and then you hear an announcement that you're about to take off, and you launch. It's not as sudden as a certain ride I'll be naming later, but it builds up to speeds of around 120 miles per hour. Top speed of 128, but it never really reaches that top speed. But nonetheless, that is a wild speed to reach on a roller coaster. And you feel like you're flying through for the rest of the ride. There are only two real elements: the massive 456-foot tall top hat, and the airtime hill that goes pretty far over the park, frankly. It's crazy that an airtime hill is that massive. And you do get a little bit of airtime there. But what really makes this ride is the unbeatable sense of speed and intensity that you keep for the whole duration of the ride. And yes, this ride is very short, but I don't care. Even though it's short, it is a truly short but sweet experience, offering one of the greatest adrenaline rushes of any roller coaster out there, and I truly, truly love this ride. Before we get to the top 10, I have some honorable mentions, rides that could not make the cut for one reason or another. First up, Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. This is the ride with a more sudden launch than Kingda Ka. It builds up the speed much quicker, it's not as gradual, so you are just flying through. Unfortunately, Top Thrill Dragster is now gone. It is now Top Thrill 2, and I have not been on that one, as most people have not, so I cannot count Top Thrill Dragster for the list. The other one that I think would have made the list, but I can't count, is Lightning Rod. Lightning Rod used to be a launched hybrid coaster, and I love the launch. It was one of my favorite parts of the ride. Unfortunately, it is now a lift hill, and because I have not experienced that, I thought it was unfair to rank. So that and Top Thrill Dragster, while they probably would have made top 15, will not be on this list. Another honorable mention is Diamondback at Kings Island. Unfortunately, despite being one of the biggest fans of the manufacturer Bolliger & Mabillard, or B&M, very few of their rides made the cuts. This is my second favorite of them all, so I wanted to give it a shout out. It is a super fun ride with great stats, fun floater airtime, a water splash near the end, and a very complete ride experience. And the last honorable mention is Hyperia at Thorpe Park. This is a UK roller coaster. I had the pleasure of experiencing some British roller coasters over the summer, and this is the best of them. It has some of the strongest elements of any roller coaster, very unique ones and incredibly fun. However, it is a little short, and while it has the makings of a top 25 roller coaster, it isn't quite there as a complete experience. It was pretty close, but it did not quite make the list. It is now time for the top 10. Number 10, GhostRider at Knott's Berry Farm. This is my favorite wooden roller coaster. It's been a long time since I went on it, but I distinctly remember the perfection of it. This thing is an airtime machine, but also provides a relentless intensity very similar to Shivering Timbers. I think it has stronger airtime, frankly, and there is a rattle to it, but it adds to the experience. I can't fully justify this one because it's been a long time since I went on it, but my heart says it's the best wooden coaster I've been on, and I'm sticking with that. Truly an incredible experience. Number 9, Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England. Wicked Cyclone is not my favorite coaster at this park, but rather this traditional hyper, which is without a doubt my favorite of the model. It is a perfect ride. The only minor issue is the restraints, but I've gotten quite used to them, so I wouldn't even consider them a flaw anymore. The layout is unbeatable. Everything from the first drop overlooking the Connecticut River, to the airtime following, to going through some small theming elements, to the insane random airtime hill in the middle of the ride, to the twister layout at the end that goes underground multiple times, giving you a great sense of speed and intensity. It is a perfect experience. I truly love this ride, and it is simply one of the best roller coasters I've ever been on. There was no way it couldn't make the top 10. Number 8, Iron Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. Another RMC hybrid, and this one is unique in its setting. It is right along the quarry wall at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. So for the ride, you will go on top of the wall, and this section is often considered slow, but I disagree. I thought it was very well paced. But what really makes this ride is not the section on the quarry wall, but the drop off of it. This drop is one of the best on any RMC, and it is not even at the beginning of the ride. It is pretty much the last thing you experience. Truly an unbeatable ending for any RMC roller coaster, and diving into the tunnel at the end is the icing on the cake. Number 7 is Twisted Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain. My favorite Six Flags roller coaster pre-merger with Cedar Fair. This RMC has the very unique experience of dueling. You can sometimes race alongside another car because there are basically 2 layouts built for this ride, and you get to experience both no matter what. Unfortunately, the dueling is inconsistent. It happens very, very infrequently. And while I've experienced both with and without dueling, I can confidently say, even without, this is my favorite Six Flags roller coaster. The first drop, or drops because you get it twice, is one of the best despite the very low stats. The airtime moments, of which there are 18 on the ride, are all great. And the two inversions they have, especially the Top Gun stall, are incredibly fun moments. Even when you're not racing another car, winding along another track is a great experience, and getting two excellent layouts for the price of one, or at least the wait time of one, is an awesome experience. It's not the best roller coaster in the world, not even the best RMC, but it is way, way up there. Number 6 is Velocicoaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure. Universal parks, for a long time at least, were not known for big, thrilling rides. You had Hulk, that really was the only one that anyone talked about. But Velocicoaster is an elite ride, one of the very best out there. It is a near perfect experience. The theming of Universal's caliber adds quite a bit. Everything from the queue, to the beautiful section inside the Raptor pen before the main second launch. It's all gorgeous. But the main part of the layout really kicks into high gear in that second half. When you have the top hat, you stop for a moment, and then tear through some incredible inversions and airtime moments. The best of these is the Mosasaurus roll, an inversion right over the water that you rip through like crazy. It is a truly phenomenal experience. There isn't really anything I can fault on it. I used to say the pacing was a little weak in the first half, but no, it's still really good, and some of the best elements of the ride are in the first half. It's so much fun to go by the raptor statues, the theme of the ride works super well, only enhances the experience. But even if this was a completely unthemed ride, this is one of the best layouts Intamin or any manufacturer have ever made, and it earned its top 10 spot. Number 5, Millennium Force at Cedar Point. I've talked about this ride many times over the years. It was the roller coaster that really did make me become an enthusiast, and it remains one of my favorites. I have never gotten a ride on it that was not worthy of top 5. The first drop is the best of any roller coaster I've done. From climbing the chain lift up 310 feet at a really high speed, frankly, to seeing the beautiful view of Lake Erie in front of you as you are right along the edge of the peninsula, to diving down for what seems like forever, hitting 93 miles per hour. It is awesome. And the layout is underrated. The way this ride holds its speed is unlike any roller coaster I've ever been on. And without a doubt, it's one of my favorite experiences I've had at any theme park. If I had to rank my top 10 individual rides on roller coasters, I am pretty sure at least 6 of them would be Millennium Force. It is a near perfect ride, and while some fault it for being forceless, I don't know, I came pretty close to graying out on it, so I don't think that is the case for me. It is Millennium Force full, and Millennium top 5. That may have been a bad joke, but it is an exceptional ride. Number 4, Fury 325 at Carowinds. This is the best B&M roller coaster, and the only one to make the top 25. But it is Millennium Force, but on a different level. It holds its speed almost as well, but has much more interesting elements. The first drop is not as strong, I would say, but it's pretty close. The airtime is even better, the high speeds are even faster at certain points, and the treble clef elements, along with others, are just so unique. This ride feels much more open than Millennium Force thanks to B&M cars having some of the best restraints, and as a result, I find it even more fun and intense. It's not as wild or rattly as things like Voyage or Shivering Timbers, but what gives it an edge is being pure fun. The stats add a lot, but even without, there's no denying this layout is beautifully crafted, and one of my favorite roller coasters, and one that's very deserving of the many awards it's won over the years. Number 3, Wildcat's Revenge at Hershey Park. I rode this just as recently as Phantom's Revenge, and I knew it was going to be good. I was pretty sure it'd be top 25, frankly. However, I did not think it was going to be this good. I seriously did consider it for number 1. It is a perfect roller coaster. It has one major strength that other RMC hybrids do not have, and I'll get to that. So you begin with the standard first drop. It's as good as most others. Then you go into a massive inversion. I love that. Then you have some good airtime moments. Those are all great. You're having a very fun ride experience, but then you hit the wave turn. This wave turn is in the middle of the ride, and is not only one of the best elements of any roller coaster, but is where the ride really kicks into high gear. I can't think of a single roller coaster out there where the second half really ramps up the ante, and it becomes one of the best roller coasters as it goes on, rather than peaking early. That's a huge issue with other rides that didn't make the list. Things like El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. That peaks after 3 elements. This one gets better as the ride goes on, meaning its finale is right up there with Iron Rattlers. This thing is immaculately paced like any other RMC, and I had early morning rides, front row, back row, I got multiple rides on this, and no matter what, it is an insane roller coaster. My individual back row on this ride is one of the best experiences I've ever had in a roller coaster. I genuinely believe this is a contender for the best roller coaster on the planet. I've heard some say it's a mid-tier RMC, but I cannot agree with that. It's totally understandable if you do think that, but I had a wild ride on this. It has some of the best airtime, best inversions, best pacing of any roller coaster out there, and it's only beaten by 2 roller coasters I've ever been on. Number 2, Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. A common pick for number 1, no doubt, and deservedly so. The biggest issue is that, admittedly, its pacing is not the strongest of any RMC. It is possible to get slow rides on this one. However, there's still no denying that its airtime is the best of any roller coaster on Earth. And I've said the word airtime a lot in this video, and just to be frank, I love that feeling of getting thrown out of your seat and the weightlessness that can come with it. I think it's so much fun. And Steel Vengeance's outer bank turn is one of the best of any roller coaster I've ever experienced. You are thrown out of your seat, it's quite violent, and I like that start, but then you are suspended in the air for a good 4 seconds before you fly back down. And that is the perfect airtime moment. Intense, but also gives you a sense of weightlessness for a long period. I love that. And every other airtime moment on this ride is immaculate. It is an unbeatable roller coaster pretty much. The best thing about it compared to other RMCs is that it feels like the longest one. You have so much to enjoy, whether it's the big elements going over the park or the ones where you're winding through the structure. The inversions are even great on this one, because if you can get great pacing, you're barreling through like never before. Steel Vengeance was my number 1 for a long time, and deservedly so. It is definitely one of the best roller coasters in the world. But number 1 is Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens, Tampa. My home park. I thought Iron Gwazi looked good, but before going on, I didn't think it could be the best because it looked a bit short, and the elements didn't look that great. I was wrong. Iron Gwazi is my favorite roller coaster, because even though it is much shorter in duration than Steel Vengeance, and even Wildcat's Revenge feels much longer, this one has the best elements, and a perfect mix of negative G-force and positive. The negative G-force is the great airtime moments, when you have the first drop as the best of any RMC, not only being the tallest and steepest, but also just super fun. You have the Outer Banks curve right after that, pretty much on par with that of Steel Vengeance. Then things get kicked into really high gear. You experience the Death Roll, my favorite inversion on any roller coaster. You are pressed into your seat, and you fly through. It's like the barrel roll drop of Twisted Timbers or Storm Chaser, but once you've already built up speed on the ride, so it's even better than those. Then you have the Wave Turn, which is right up there with Wildcat's Revenge, flying over the station, being way faster, and being almost as great in terms of getting thrown out of your seat. And then the ride is just tearing through the rest of its layout, and while the other elements may not be quite as noteworthy, they are still all excellent. Simply put, Iron Gwazi has the great layout of something like Wildcat's Revenge or Velocicoaster. It's a very different layout, but it packs in great elements while also being very cohesive, which is why Hyperia could not make the list. It's not quite as cohesive despite being world-class in the individual elements. Iron Gwazi also has the perk, though, of being the biggest adrenaline rush I've experienced outside of King Dakar. It's a truly insane ride. Every time I ride, no matter where or when, it is simply my favorite roller coaster in the world. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below your top 25 or just a top 10 if you don't have that much time on your hands. Subscribe for more theme park content. I'll see you next time.